Hey folks, we had a great morning in our war room. Things went off just as expected. We had lots of gaps this morning. You know, Apple that sort of set a stage for a little bit of weirdness on the open. So we had a dip in tech right off the bell. Energy shot higher. So everything was. We had mixed markets. Long story short, and some of the tech managed to get into our bands, into the volatility bands. So we had Meta, for example, that just went and ran the bands, which is always a big deal because Meta is an expensive stock that can, really put some numbers up on the board. And we had some great opening gaps. Not as many as on a typical day. For some reason, Fridays have been a little bit slower. So if you guys were in the room today, then you know that we only really had three opportunities for the gap entries, at least on the 1, 2, 3 setups. And that's a little light considering how big the list is, but Fridays just tend to stall. And we had some really good trades though on the ones that did trigger, and we had some very good trades on some of our Magnificent Seven stuff. Apple didn't give us the arbitrage trade off the open. That's okay. And for the rest of the day, I see some good stuff in the QQQ NQ pair and also on our Mag 7. Hey, we're going to Vegas, remember that. So if you are interested in the Trader Insight, Vegas deal this weekend, it's very nonchalant. Just show up. We'll be over at Paris or Bally's or Horseshoe or whatever it's called now in the sports book probably with a bunch of the guys. Palavotis invited us to join him, so I'm inviting everybody else. Surprise, Mike. It's going to be a bunch of people probably. But if you can make it, make it. If not, then we'll try to do it next time. Let's go take a look at the charts and see what's going on for the rest of the session. Here we have let me change this so that we can just see one group at a time and make a little bit better sense out of this. All right, so here we go. So this was the open, and like I said, we had a little bit of a bounce lower, still opened in line, opened right around that central pivot on the NASDAQ, on the triple Qs, and then shot higher. So that opening move is not really one that we're looking to capitalize on in the triple Qs or the NQ, but as the day progresses, what I'm focused on are these levels right here. So I just drew another one, and that'll be valid probably for the rest of the day. Right now we're moving up through that pivot line. That pivot line right there at 489.60, I guess it is. That is a trigger for a move higher. You can see that we've got confluence there. What this tells us is if we're going to trade the Q directly, it's a no-brainer, right? We're just trading the Q, QQQ, and if we're going to trade the NQ, what we can do is do the correlate and just have it trigger automatically in our futures trading platform. But the key here is that this level right here is the anchored VWAP for pretty much this, for this move from here to here. So you've got an anchored VWAP there that gives you a good indication of a place that there's going to be an inflection. And then the line that we just drew tells us, if we get down into that 489.12 level, that's a nice place to look for an inflection and a repeat performance of what happened just a little while ago in this move right here. So we had the move higher that came back down, inflected there, and then popped higher again. I think a little sloppy there, but if we come back down right there to there, those are the ones that I'm going to look for the next couple hours anyways. 489.12 up into 489.60, up into 490.45. So let's see if it wiggles around in there. It'll give us some good opportunities. The other thing you want to keep an eye on is these guys right here are starting to channel sideways, and I think that is what's going to happen over the course of the session. If we get a sideways move there, then let's focus on the cluster analysis here, the histogram, and say, this little brick of volume is where we're interested in seeing these guys bundle tighter. And if they do, then the range is going to be relatively simple. Here up to the midline, here down to the midline and back up again. But I think generally speaking right now our bias on this one is going to be on the long side of the market as it's been climbing for most of the session. And unless we see a trend reversal at some point, that's where I'm going to stay focused. Now let's look at our Magnificent Seven stocks. You can see here that we have had sort of a mixed bag on these guys over the course of the morning today. Some of them are trending, some of them are sideways in the consolidations. I tend to like them later in the day once they're in the box. So Amazon on the big gap higher this morning. This one's trading nicely in this range between 199.31 and 9.91. I think that's the range that I'm going to focus on for now. If it comes back down into 198.55, I'm going to wait for a dip below that moves higher. So I don't want to take a straight shot at a bounce from here. What I'd like to see is something that gets down a little bit lower, maybe all the way down into 197.66. I'll take that one as a long. But if it comes back up from below and moves through here, then I'd be looking at 198.55 up to 199.31 as a first target. Then on Google's trading in a nice little range between 172.78 and 173.41. So just shy of that 3.41 line is where it seems to be pausing. We've got some volume by price stacked out here. That says there's order flow sitting there. There's a seller out there making a market. There's a buyer down here making a market, probably even the same guy. But this shows you that you've got order flow at the top and order flow at the bottom that we can work with for probably the next couple hours. On Meta's got this thing was great this morning down through our volatility bands, big move for the morning. But now now that we've had this shot higher, it's a little bit looser on what we're seeing in terms of the support and resistance around these bands. And the bands, oddly, are very well bracketed with these histograms. So if you look at what's going on, it says it should be going down and inflecting right at that 568.83 level. It just hasn't made it down there. Let's see if it makes it. If it does, I'm going to look for a long entry right there. Might peel that off as a scalp around 570. Or look for the bigger move all the way up into 70.92, but I think that the tighter little scalp is what I'm going to focus on today. It's Friday, so why not have a little bit easier setup than we do the rest of the week. Take it easy on Friday, right? Here is a 414.13 level on Microsoft. You can see that it dipped previously. It did get down below this line right here. So I'm going to wait for a retest and then a move higher. So if it got down just a little bit lower here, I wouldn't worry about it. And then came back up through the 414.13 threshold there. If we get through that, then we are solidly into all of this stuff right here. That's been holding up nicely for the last half hour anyways, hour. And if it moves lower than that, I think the next stop is going to be that orange line, which is the VWAP for the swing move. The orange line on my chart is an anchored VWAP of this low to this high, and that says that probably this volume right here from 411.45 drove this thing higher. A lot of volume was right here at the line. And if we get back down to either one of those levels, then I'll look for a long side trade there on Microsoft. On NVIDIA, we are in the box. So NVIDIA is tracking right on top of roughly that 135.90 VWAP from the morning. We're staying nicely above that. 136.02 seems to be the dip below the pivot line. Then the moves back up through the pivot have been good for range all the way up into 136.74. I'll keep watching that. I'm going to also, stay conscious of the fact that we're getting these dips below here, and I'm going to let it try that. I was telling Eric yesterday, if it dips below and it gets you in on the way back up, then you're going to feel like a hero because you waited for the confirmation. And if it doesn't dip, if it just comes down, hits the line, and then pops higher, you're going to feel like you're missing something. The reality is you just have to make the decision about, do you want to have the tighter stop, or do you want to have the guaranteed entry? The tighter stop is going to be waiting for that 136.02 move lower and then back up through. The guaranteed entry would be just to get in right at the pivot. On Tesla, So Tesla's been really trading pretty nicely today, and it's pretty much a bidirectional trade. So it's trading right around the central pivot, down a little bit from there. 252.95 central pivot, 249.96 is the bottom band. But I'm going to say here, I've been looking at the inflection from the bottom band because of this move. I think that right now the move to focus on is that move right there. So 249.96 up to 251. 14 is the line. I'm going to say 251 or 250.99 even is the best place to pull the plug on the scalp. And then if it gets back up, if we're lucky enough to get a move up into here and capitalize on that, profit on that, I'm going to look at a short side move on anything that gets above there into 253.41 and then reverses down through the central pivot at 252.95. Got lots of confluence there saying that that's a good move to have. The volume by price, this thing looks more like the volume by price that you're going to see in a typical volume by price distribution. Tesla's had big volume today, looking at 28 million shares so far, and it's really in a tight range. So this stuff right here is going to be a little bit harder to figure out in terms of when is it dropping off, when is it when is it staying right in front of you than it typically is, and that's just because there's a lot of activity in every one of those ranges. So I think that pretty well sums up my ideas for the session right now, and we can see if we get something that comes our way later, and I think we're good, right? So that's everything. So if you're in the room, that's your that's the strategy for the rest of the day. I've been talking about it already, but I'm going to get back in there, and we'll focus on the trades that we're taking at the moment. If you're not in the room and you're doing it on your own, then if you've been to boot camp, I'm going to say it again, you should be in the room. Don't be on some chat on your phone. Be in the room with us and talk about what it is that you're doing. We'd love to see you. All right, so maybe I'll see you guys in Vegas, maybe I won't, but have a great weekend, and I will see everybody back here on Tuesday. Have a good one.